I am by your side. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is time to get into it. It is our first day of the new 2.0 release devotional journey. I'm your girl, Jeanette Smith, certified life strategist and mindset coach. I see you all already coming in the room. It is my honor and pleasure to be your path leader and your guide and your friend and your sister friend and your internet coach and all of those good things. So I want to say hello to the folks from Facebook, all pages and the pages you shared on Facebook. Hello to my YouTubers and Periscope. I see you. So tap out those hearts. Keep them coming. You know how I love it when you kiss my cheeks with those beautiful, beautiful hearts. Good morning, Michael. How are you? Good to see you as always. Lisa, West Coast. Whoop, whoop. What's up? Leola, good morning, my sister. Hello, beautiful Pamela. Good to see you. Good to see you. I'm so glad that everybody is gathered up. We have a topic that you all asked to come back and revisit from our initial 21-day release journey. And understandably so, because feelings buried alive never die is so real and so raw that you almost can't hit it with one with one pop popper. So I encourage you right now, this is the time when you want to share this, you want to send it out on your page, you want to make sure you subscribe if you're on YouTube, get that link from the YouTube footer there and share it, send it in a message, whatever you need to do, because we want to get all the hearts and minds and build this community in this room of conversation so that people can get free. We need people to get free. It's good for you to be free, but then we want everybody else to be free too, right? Right? Yes, yes. Good morning, Daryl. Good to see you, brother. So good to have our brothers on. And I'm excited because we're going to have a brother with us today too. So we are expanding. We had a great 21 days, but we're expanding now, and we want to make sure that we give this topic its proper due. You might remember when we were talking about this, I shared with you that out of my devotional, I had mentioned this book called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And it's a book by Carol K. Truman. And today in the 2.0 version, what I want to do is go deeper into the spiritual nature, the psychological nature, and the science behind emotions that become trapped or buried, because it happens even at a cellular level. And I don't know that we often give credence to that. I mean, if you go and you study it and you know, as part of my certification in strategic intervention, I want to always make sure that I'm reading up on the you know, the most recent studies and balancing that with what I know as a woman of faith. And it's a lot to take in, and it's a lot to kind of digest. But, you know, for me, and those of you who are just new to me, when I had cancer and I watched stress literally grow a tumor in the side of my neck, I knew I needed to know and learn everything I could about how to release stress and tension and feelings and emotions out of my body. Emotion, the word is feelings in motion. Basically, it's your emotions with energy, right? And so it's important because we need to even understand that all of our experiences create this emotional molecule that will respond. So if you've ever had a massage and the masseuse tells you, oh my gosh, you got a knot right here. And you go, yeah, I had a rough week. I've kind of stressed out. There's a little bit of that right here. That is because your nerve endings bundle up in these pockets. Your body starts holding this stress. So how do we cope? When we have traumatic and stressful ordeals that we deal with, we have a protective mechanism in our minds and our bodies, and we will suppress it, we will box it, we will compartmentalize it, but the evidence is still in our body and even in our triggers, our emotions, when something bumps up against it, you know. And so that's why I want to make sure that we attack this from the mind, the body, and the spirit perspective today. So I'm excited to call back with me into service. Hello, Dwight. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Hello, Helen. Great to have you with too. Back into service with me, my sister in love, my sister in ministry. Would you all get your emojis and radical hospitality together and tap out some hearts and love for Reverend Cherie Smith Claiborne? Boop, boop,
Good
boop.
morning. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
We're good. We're doing good. I also want to say that we've gotten so many, so much feedback and so many messages about how this subject really moved and touched people, and you were a huge part of that. So I just want to thank you again for the part you played in part 1, and thanks for coming back for 2.0.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
And so it is, and I know you're excited because we have another partner in ministry and a partner through our extended family that we want to welcome into this conversation today. So y'all tap it out for Pastor Willie Diggs. Willie Diggs in the house, y'all.
Hey, how y'all doing?
We're good, brother. We're excited to get together synergistically like this to talk through some stuff. So I know y'all want to get to it like I do. I want to just share before we go back to our scripture, some information that Cherie and I will share in our women's release experience, and it comes again out of the strategic intervention strand of coaching, is understanding epigenetics, right? The study of changes in our organism. And, we're just one big organism. So understanding those changes are important. There was a study that came out of the University of Utah where they used mice. And I know they shocked the mice. I can't do nothing about it, y'all. But this is what we learned. I know. Just kind of leap over that part for me. But in a maze, when they would get to a certain part of the maze where cherry blossoms were, right, they would give them a little shot. And they learned to become afraid of cherry blossoms. So that even when they stopped giving them a little bzz, when they saw cherry blossoms, they just freaked out, right? They just stopped. They traced this behavior of trauma and shock through 3 generations of mice. 3 generations of mice that never had the zip, never had any of that, but your mom and your dad went through it. Mm-hmm. And when you see a cherry blossom, so the question is, what are our cherry blossoms?
Yeah.
Wow.
What are the things that we don't even realize that we are responding to and trying to unpack on a daily basis because of the traumas of generations past? Mm-hmm. Right? And so you've got that, and then you add to that the new experiences that you encounter in life, and you mix all that up, and then you try to bury that alive, and the stench becomes evident, right? And so that's kind of where I want to leap off today. Good morning, Anthony. How are you? They're saying, welcome, Pastor Diggs. Yes. And so that's where we want to leap off today. So we're going to go to our scripture. Let me shout out my pastor too, because I remember when I was having this conversation with him, who happens to be the husband of the lovely Reverend Riri, him talking about the studies of shark migration through the Middle Passage, because through the Middle Passage where they would dump dead or dying or, by suicide slaves overboard and crew members too. That was the thing. You dump them overboard, and that the sharks would follow the ships all the way across the Atlantic sometimes. So how their migration patterns change to follow through generations, to follow that path because of their parents. So when you study more about emotions, and we really understand that our bodies are nothing but these atoms and energy, this is the reason, y'all, that we will keep hammering this. Scientists will even suggest that 90% of our energy daily is used to suppress our negative energy. Can you imagine? You're spending 90% of your energy to suppress negative energies and feelings from the past. So much more we could be doing, y'all. So much more we could be doing. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Lisa. So we're going to jump into our scripture. So looking at Psalm here, I'm starting with the, I think this is the NLT. Is this the NLT? Yep, the NLT. All right, we start here. I will bless the Lord who guides me. Even at night, my heart instructs me. I know the Lord is always with me. I will not be shaken, for he is right beside me. No wonder my heart is glad and I rejoice. My body rests in safety. For you will not leave my soul among the dead or allow your Holy One to rot in the grave. You will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence, and the pleasures of living with you forever. And Willie, I had layered that with the Message version, which you know how we like to look at a good couple of versions. Yeah. That says, the wise counsel God gives when I'm awake is confirmed by my sleeping heart. Day and night, I'll stick with God. I've got a good thing going and I won't let go. Mm-hmm. I'm happy from the inside out. And from the outside in, I'm firmly formed. You canceled my ticket to hell. And we said, hell of our spirit, hell in the mind, hell in my body, hell in my finances, hell in my relationship, hell, whatever hell is. That is not my destination. Now you've got my feet on the path of life, all radiant from the shining of your face. Ever since you took my hand, I'm on the right way. So, Willie, since you are new to the discussion, I want to open it up first to you for what nuggets and what things leap out at you as we talk about this topic, feelings buried alive never die, and our scripture focus for today.
Got it. Thank you. I think one of the things that really stuck out to me is when you talked about the hell piece. And when we look at, hell in this particular place, it looks at the fact that we're looking at a place with no peace. We're looking at a place that when we have these traumatic experiences and that are encouraged by triggers, then we get into this space of our lives to where we have no peace, and that disrupts sleep, that disrupts relationships, that disrupt growth. It disrupt potential. So we see all of these things when we don't have peace. And you start seeing that, for some of us, when we go through these traumatic experiences, for some of us, we find safety in trauma.
Speak, sir.
I'm a social worker by profession. So one of the ways we look at the way people function is we look at that human behavior in the social environment piece. And when you start looking at that, it's easy to notice that some people can get in places of trauma and they run back to those places because they feel familiar. They feel, even though they know it's not good for them, even though they know that it hurts, they run back to places that they're familiar with because being free is unknown. Or feels unknown.
Yes, that uncertainty.
So those are my, kind of like my starting points in looking at it, is that I think that when you're managing this, you got to really do that self-discovery.
Yeah.
And it's layers. It's layers. You're gonna go through things to where, especially if you've experienced trauma, there are certain smells that trigger you. There are certain sights and sounds that are going to trigger you. Even current events are going to trigger you when you have those traumatic experiences. And if you're not aware of them, it can sometimes catch you off guard.
Yeah.
Especially, like, say, for example, when you're dating somebody and all of a sudden their tone changes. And because you have experiences that they may know nothing about, the fact that their tone changes can be a trigger. We find that a lot in relationships. Because we go into relationships showing people the pretty side of us. We don't show them the other part.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where I would definitely, start circling, my space on dealing with that place of making sure that we can get back to the place of peace.
Where is your personal connect in this? Because we all as people have had to walk the walk of dealing with emotions, and some of them that we may have not processed out to the degree we should have.
Got it. For me, one of my pain points was the loss of my father very young. With the loss of my dad at 3 years old from cancer, I spent majority of my life not understanding the separation piece. And because every time I thought of a vacation, I used the vacation. I wouldn't go on vacation without my children. So for my wife and I have been together for this year, we'll be married for 19 years. But for 15 of those years, I would not even go on a private vacation with her because I had this trauma as a 3-year-old kid to where I lost my dad in a space to where I thought it was on vacation. What did that do for our relationship? Oh man, it caused a lot of struggle because we needed a break. But because of those pain points, that's where I identify, even with current events, the seeing the, deaths, and I don't want to, drive us down that road.
Fine.
But
You're fine.
I think that that for some of us as African-American men, that's a trauma space. I identify with his daughter. She no longer has the dad. So I know that there'll be times she'll sit in her room and she'll question things. One of those questions she'll ask is why. One of those questions may be that she asks, who am I? Because we know that male role deals a lot with identity. So to lose that so early, that's a trigger for me.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Understand. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and if you don't responsibly manage that, you can find yourself in a shutdown space.
Absolutely. Carmen says, first we have to realize that we have triggers. And that's why you got to check in. We constantly, Carmen, that's a great point. We talk about checking in with yourself. I realized this week that I had a trigger that I didn't realize that I had, right? So I live in the downtown Inner Harbor-ish area of Baltimore, where a lot of the protesting has been going on. Now, the peaceful protesting has been fine. I've been actually very proud of how Baltimore has showed up, got their message out and all of that. At night, it's been a couple of different things, not on that level. And what I didn't realize was the very first night there was shooting. There was, flash bomb things trying to get crowds back. There was a lot. There was I called them stormtroopers, but the police in the riot gear with the shields marching on it. I mean, there was a lot. And what I didn't realize until after the fact, because I was trying to say, Jeanette, did you ever feel like your life was in danger? I'm 17 floors up. I'm not. I never felt like my life per se was in danger, but what I couldn't identify was all of this. And I know that I'm an empath and sometimes the stuff I'm feeling is not mine, but this one was mine. And so I was trying to put my finger on it. And what I realized was when I was a young girl, we lived in Iran. And I was 6, and it was right around the time when the Shah was being thrown out and Americans were starting to be attacked. And I was there because my father was in the military. And there was this one day we were coming home from school and an explosion had happened. And as we're driving by, the big kids, we were looking out the window trying to see what happened. And I remember the big kids saying, get the little kids away from the window. Get the little kids back. But I had already seen. Now, here's the thing. I can't see it with my mind's eye, which I'm glad about. But what I have this impression of remembering is that I saw body parts in trees and things. Okay. And so those explosions. So you go back to a couple nights ago, you start explosion. And I was awakened out of my sleep by these explosions and flashes of light and things. Then I realized, okay, that tied back, but it took me a minute to figure it out because I Carmen, to your point, I didn't realize it was a trigger. I've reported the news. I've been in places where explosions and tornadoes and all kind of stuff has happened. I've seen dead bodies for that matter, but something about that being caught out of my sleep off guard you know, that, and then the sounds that I had not heard for years and years and years of my life. And so I think the point, Carmen, would be for us all to do that level of work. Don't just experience something. I talked about this the first time we did this topic, and I said, you know, look under the hood of your car. Look under the hood of your car. But then when you see some stuff is not right, don't just shut the hood and then go get in the car. Like, you got to fix it, or you got to get help fixing it or addressing whatever's going on.
I think sometimes it's also up to friends and family.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't rest solely on them, but for some triggers, if you have no recollection of something, and you're not someone who does self-excavation on a regular basis, you may not know because you can't see patterns.
Right.
And so sometimes it's up to those who are close to us not to down us, but to say, have you noticed that when such and such happens, this also happens? Like, do you think that's a thing? Yeah. More asking questions and finding out what you notice, and even maybe connecting it to something you've experienced and how you figured out what triggers were and how that worked for you, but not coming down on someone. Well, you know, you shouldn't. Well, right. No, it's not going to help them see what's going on. But if you can help point out patterns and help them locate patterns, then it's easier sometimes to figure out that could be a trigger.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up the topic of judgment, because we won't deal with our stuff because we judge ourselves. Like, we don't want to bring it to the forefront because I shouldn't be like that. I should be fearful. I shouldn't be feeling that. I shouldn't be, you know, and the thing is, you know, in our release pattern, we talk about, you feel it. You've got to allow yourself to feel it. What you do with it after that can become several different things, the direction that you take with that. So I'm glad you brought that up. Reverend Riri, I know when we first looked at those scriptures, you had two nuggets that you reminded people of, and I just want to put it back in. One of them was that in the middle of the situation, stop and locate your gratitude. Why was gratitude a focal point for you?
Because gratitude can pull you up out of some stuff. It can help you see that even if times are hard now, one, you've likely been through hard times before.
Yeah.
And if you're still here, that means you're still standing. You may still have some work to do, but you can still make it. And so I think gratitude helps us see that God has not closed God's hand.
Yeah.
That God is still working with us. And even in looking at the scripture again, as Pastor Willie was going through, because hell is where I landed too on it, Willie. I was like, yeah, let's look at that hell right there. Because right now it's seeming like we're in the midst of some hell.
Yeah.
But it says that God has canceled our ticket to hell. Now, that doesn't mean we don't still have the ticket in our hand. What happens when you were sold out on this ticket? You going on this trip and you have already prepared for the trip, but God has canceled that particular leg or that trip. So what does that mean? And to me, that's where we have to make the decision. The Bible says that even if we make our own beds in hell, God will be there with us. But that's because God promises to never leave us or forsake us.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that the situation we're in that's where God wants us to be. And so even in that scripture, we have to keep our hand in God's hand. And when our hand is in God's hand, that's when we can see some gratitude, you know, that another day, you know, I did go through X, Y, and Z. You know, I did go through these things, but God has been with me because look, I can at least see myself now, you know, and seeing ourselves is so important.
Yeah. And strategic intervention, we talk about shifting patterns and we talk about shifting states, right? And gratitude is a great way to shift because it takes you off of looking from here to looking up here. The other thing you shared was don't just shift to gratitude, but ask God to guide you, which I think, you know, we forget about the asking. We forget about that.
Because the ask has to do with your being willing. You know, so it's not just God keeps saying some stuff to me, because God will talk to us. But I've also experienced when you don't do what God has already told you, God might not keep speaking because you haven't done what I already told you to do. And so it's the ask is the help me be open even. Lord, I'm grateful that you already spoke. Now help me. Send your spirit to help me walk in the way you would have me to so I can see and do what you have for me.
And I don't know if you saw Carmen said one of her favorite sentences is, "Oh, I'm judging." Like you, and that's great because you call yourself out on it. It's like, snatch it, grab it back, you know. And then she said she loved that you mentioned about giving ourselves some grace and some space, as I like to say. Yes, yes, yes. Savala said, "Uh-huh."
I am. She said something about that ass thing that just starts stirring over here.
Go ahead.
I think something, that we also have to look at is that when you do the ask piece, that is you participating in your own rescue.
Yes.
That is your investment in your well-being and releasing that ticket. A lot of times that, we study everybody else. We study different characters. We read different books, but a lot of times we don't sit down and study ourselves.
Yes, yes.
We don't study ourselves because we don't always identify that the God who created us, when he created us, he didn't make junk, because trauma would make you think that you're trash sometimes.
Yeah.
So when you release that, you get the opportunity to look and say, you know what? He created me. He thought so much of me that let me investigate who I am. Let me investigate who he says I am, this freedom space that I can live in, free from trauma. And here's the reality. A lot of us, as we go through life, as you start to do that self-discovery, like you was talking about, Jeanette, you're going to start picking up on things. And a lot of us dismiss that.
Yeah.
We dismiss it of, oh, it was just a isolated incident. Most of the time, we can actually trace it. We can actually trace it back to things that we experience, and then we have to start to manage. So I think that people need to get the revelation that it is okay to evaluate yourself and do those self-assessments.
Absolutely.
It's okay and it's necessary.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's necessary. Yeah.
I've been saying that through this time of the pandemic, please know that life is not going to return to normal like you knew it. Even if many things are similar, there's going to be things that are never going to be the same. And even what we're going through as a country, well, I can't even say country, worldwide, because protests are popping off in many countries. This fight to be significant, see me, hear me, value my life, all of that. Prayerfully, we will not be the same. Savala says we should also recognize the source of our triggers, whether they're external triggers, atmospheric triggers, internal triggers, those in our heads, synthetic triggers that we not only construct but have control over. Absolutely. But those are the things, Savalas, that a professional helps you do. Those are the things that a licensed or certified therapist and or coach will help you do. 9 times out of 10, our families aren't that elevated in their understanding of triggers. The best they can bring you is, have you noticed when you do that, this happens? Have you noticed when we, and so that part, the part you get to where Savalas is talking about is asking for the help, which you all know I tell you all the time. Please, 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 please reach out to me on my website, because if it's not me, I'm happy. I have a slew of therapists. I have made some connections this week for people out of our last week's show to make sure that you get to the psychotherapist or the mental health counselor or whoever you need, or the coach that you need to deal with your particular brand of suffering, of pain, of feelings that are buried alive. So please take that screenshot. If you inbox me from the website, I promise you I am so committed to making sure that you get the help.
Jeanette,
yep.
With that, I think it's a good place to plug into. A lot of times people expect that process to come from their spiritual leader, and they're not equipped to do that. And I think we have a lot of, spiritual leaders who are practicing, are malpracticing, they're having, because they don't have the credentials to actually do that. Now, from the spiritual perspective, they do, but from the modalities in the natural realm of walking things out. And we do 2 things with that. We burden the person to try to do something that they're not equipped to do.
Come on, sir. And
we don't point to, most of the time, there's resources that we can partner with to get that piece off of us.
Yeah.
I'm one of those, and I agree. I'm always pointing, hey, go do this. Now we do some things spiritually, in our church, but most of the time, if there are issues that we don't feel like we have the credentials to do, we point people to the people who got the credentials. It doesn't make us less spiritual. For any spiritual leader that's listening to this or, watching the live, get that pressure off of you. You're not a therapist. You are a pastor. Release that today and send them to the therapist. Matter of fact, if you got the resources, pay for the first 2 sessions, do something so that you can get off of you. And I just think that's something that needs to be said. We do that in our local assembly, but I think that's a worldwide practice that we need to get the body of Christ to do.
I think part of that, though, means you have to be willing to walk through that fear.
Mm-hmm.
So the clergy person has to be willing to walk through the fear of what will they think about me.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is, go ahead and walk through it, knock that door down, because if they already have thoughts about you that are inappropriate, because it's inappropriate to think that one person can be your everything, no matter what relationship you're in. No one person is equipped to be your everything. And then for the person, I think sometimes people are looking for people to be their everything because they're already afraid to talk to other people. And so part of it is the fear. I mean, even in dealing with this topic, fear is really at the root of so many things that keep us stuck.
Yeah. No doubt. I want to go back because Carmen said in response to you, Pastor Diggs, I feel attacked, LOL, but you're so right. We have to self-evaluate and make some changes. I want to pull Rosalind in here. As a social worker, I struggle with the Maslow hierarchy. Yes, as it relates to people of color, because it's difficult to reach full self-actualization, motivation when we have not gotten past safety on that pyramid. Those of you who reach the top are recipients of grace and mercy. And I feel the same way. Like for me, I just kind of put them in a circle. Because it could be certainty or it could be safety this time. It could be growth and connection this time. It could be love and connection this time. It could be different things. And I'm so with you on that, Roz, that it really is dependent on your experience. I'm thinking now about something that we shared. Let me put this up for us to talk about a little bit. The first time, what healing actually looks like. I think it looks like that little tiny circle at the top. You just meditate peacefully and then you're healed. Boop. Or you go to your pastor, your spiritual leader, and thank you everybody from different faith developments. Come on in and meet us where you can see God. But just a touch of the hand, a touch to the forehead, something like that, and we're done. But what healing actually looks like is unpacking the trauma, having difficult conversations, taking radical responsibility for your actions, implementing healthy routines out of that, and then setting and enforcing boundaries. And then guess what? You wash and repeat. You go back and you unpack the trauma and you have a difficult conversation. Take responsibility, implement healthy boundaries, and set and enforce your boundaries. So it's much more involved, which is why I love what you're saying. We do have the same philosophy and practice at our church. Reverend Riri, who is first lady there, can tell you. And we actually have ministers on staff who are licensed therapists, which is a blessing unto us. But even if we didn't, that referral process, that dot connecting thing, don't be afraid in your own families to do that. And it can simply go like this, because I hear you. Somebody say, I don't know how to have that conversation. All you got to do is say, you can listen, just listen, and then say, I can imagine that that's pretty hard to carry around every day. Have you thought about sharing this with somebody that could help you kind of work through that, unpack that? Not like you need to go get your head checked. Nothing like right? But have you thought about trying, because we know that in our communities, the stigma of talking to licensed therapists and the like is there, but we are busting that down every day. We need to be busting that down, because our mental health disparity, the rates and the ratings and the percentages of the disparity between where we stand from a healthy standpoint is so much higher than our other counterparts, but dang, we go through so much, right? So now we have to be willing to accept the help that will help us deal with that stuff.
I think the other part is if you want people to really be able to hear you, it might be good if you go get help. Who are you talking to? Because a lot of times the things we can spot in others, we can spot them because it's us too. And so who are you talking to? What is it in your conversation that you can offer that says, yeah, I've had to talk to someone, whether it's a therapist, a coach, or you have found, so many times it can be as simple as, what are you watching on Facebook?
Yes.
What are you feeding yourself?
There
are some therapists that I actually know in person, but I also follow them on Facebook because what they give is life-giving. And so they help you look at yourself, but I also know they're faith people. And so it's really important, even as we've been at different churches, we have also done our best to vet the people that we send people to.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's not like we just go and pulling people out the phone book or, I saw or heard. No, we make phone calls to people and find out what you're about, before we send people. So I think the conversation of what you've done to help yourself is also very valid in having conversations with others.
Carmen says, listen, having a therapist and a spiritual leader is okay. I got one. I pass her card out like Skittles.
You showed us that image about the wholeness piece and the healing piece. And I'm so happy you did that, because I believe what that image showed us was that wholeness was a process. It takes the pressure off of today. Most of us feel like when we are having our traumatic experience, or those spaces where we're being overloaded with triggers, we feel like we got to fix it today.
Yeah.
But that's not always the process. Yeah. There's a lot of times you have to walk through this gradually, and it is okay to have a process of deliverance.
Yes.
We think that, it's got to come out now, that's so religious. Sometimes that is the process of deliverance is you walking a space out, walking out your realness, walking it out, your deliverance, and learning how to cope differently, and just knowing that, it don't have to happen today. And I know we can sensationalize things and make people think, well, it's going to happen today. No, baby, you've been fighting that for 20 years. No, it may take you a little while to process that. And we have to give people the grace, even in our families, even in our communities. We got to give them grace and walk with them through the process. We have to stop dumping people off. This is another thing that we got to stop doing. We got to stop dumping them off because they haven't got it yet. Yeah. You don't know how long that they've struggled with that traumatic experience. If you've had something for 20 years, if you think you're going to get rid of it in a day, that's not reality. It takes a process. And we have to walk people through the process.
I think part of that process too, as far as feelings buried alive and never die, there are some feelings that you had to bury at certain times, because if not, it could have killed you.
Oh yeah.
But in the state where you are now, it's not going to kill you if you bring it up and deal with it. It's actually going to set you free. And so I think it's also giving yourself that kind of space and grace, not beat yourself up for not having handled it a certain way or dealt with it fully. Maybe you couldn't deal with it fully then, but now you're not at that place, but you still got to deal with this so you can keep it moving.
I'd like to always, remind us, because it's true, about perspective. When we're small, things look so much bigger. Remember, you go back to school, you're like, oh my God, this school, I thought this school was so huge because the perspective when you're like a foot to the ground is that everything's huge. So even with traumas, the things that are right up front like this on you are huge. But now that you're an adult and you put it back in alignment with you, you can deal with it now, because look how much more you've grown. Look how much bigger you are, not just physically, but mentally, spiritually, psychologically, all those things. And now you can go back and revisit that thing. But one of the things that kind of makes that hard is what happens on the inside of us, because we will get to this place where we're having these physiological reactions to things in our body at a molecular level that makes us feel like we're reliving the ordeal all over again. You know what I'm saying? And so it's in those moments when those things come up. And again, trained professionals can better help you with that. But when you feel, you have to remind yourself. We did an exercise the other day and I was sharing something that was it was a testimony, but it was a very hard ordeal that a young lady went through. And the exercise pulled us out of looking at it from a great distance, because I don't want people that may have had similar experiences to be right up on it, for that to trigger something that, like you said, felt, smelled, tasted, touched, right. So those are the things that when you feel yourself starting to vibrate highly and it's anxiousness, if you can pause yourself and remind yourself, in my present state, I am safe. In my present state, I'm sitting on my couch at home. I'm safe. In this space, I'm safe. But then you got to realize that if that's something that continually happens, you got to get help. Let me go back to the Miss Helen was trying to throw a little joke in here. I see you. She said all my trips got canceled because of pandemic. Could they be tickets from hell?
If it was a cruise, it could have been.
It might have been. It might have been. Paula says, Jesus said, see my scars for a reason, because transparency in life is one of the most effective tools we can use to allow people to know they're not alone. Absolutely. I was even thinking about the lepers that he healed on the road. He said he healed them, and as they walked away, they became whole. Like that process. Process, right? And so not being frustrated, not quitting in the middle of the wheel because, I unpacked my trauma and I did this, but you didn't get through all the steps. So don't quit on yourself. And I want you to talk a little bit before we get into more of the positive psychology aspect. I have an exercise that we're going to do today. Some things I want to bring to your attention about heart walls, because part of why feelings get to stay buried alive is because you've built a wall around them. So we want to talk about some of that. But I want to talk from a spiritual perspective to you too. What is either your personal philosophy or what you feel led to share today about those that might be dealing with feelings that are buried alive? How would you advise them as a spiritual advisor to begin to deal with that process? And now, Willie, you said something, and I don't know if you feel led to touch on this, but you talked about the importance of the support system, right? And so it's not just about me going through this, but what should families be doing? Because there may be people watching that are like, I know somebody that needs help. I just don't really know how to get involved in that or how to approach that. As a social worker, how do you advise people?
One of the things that, I always tell people to look at that circle that you have at home. Home is, if your home is a safe space. Let me say it like that. That's if your home is a safe space.
Yes, sir.
Every home isn't safe. And we know that just from the social work aspect. But if your home is safe, you need opportunities to share. I'm one of those people that I believe that there needs to be more what we call dinner table conversations.
Yeah.
I remember growing up, you would get to the dinner table, whether you be at your grandmother's house or you be at your mama's house, and everybody get to the table. You didn't bring no phones to grandmama's table. Only thing you got, you passed the greens, you had the collard, the cornbread, we sat down there, the fried chicken, you get you one piece, don't get out the whole basket because everybody got to eat, and you have that space to be able to share. And I think it's imperative now that we have to get back to having those conversations, because those gave us opportunities to vent. They gave us opportunities to share life experiences. And we're missing that in our earth right now. We're missing those genuine conversations to be able to explore, how did you survive what you went through? And I think that's one of the ways that I would start from a social work aspect. I would always start with making sure that you have a space to communicate safely. And if you can't communicate safely at your home, you need to identify other safe spaces.
Yes, sir.
And that may be at church, that may be at school, that may be, I'm always pulled more to children I have a strong passion for children. Whenever I see that children are struggling, it starts to bother me.
I got you.
Even now,
I got
even in talking about it, because
I
I
got you.
believe in all the things that are going on with kids right now. I'm not sure that every kid has a safe space to have a conversation.
Yes.
And that's a space to where they're able to say, I'm gonna do something very natural right now. I'm struggling because I haven't seen my friends. I'm now confined to being at home. I'm an athlete, or I am a person who's on a debate club and all that. I don't have that outlet anymore, and I'm here. Yeah. We're gonna have to talk to them about that experience.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to have that. So, and I think that's a space to where some other leniencies may need to happen. If they're having moments to where they want to be up all night and talking on the game with their friends, give them the opportunity to do that and just let them sleep a little bit later. Their world is changing. You got to learn how to balance this. It can't be get up at 8, lay down at 8. I think that now in this space, that so that we don't have a crash and burn situation on our hands, we're going to have to make sure that we loosen up some of those spaces so that they can adjust. Absolutely. So I would always start, with the conversation that now from a spiritual aspect, I would always direct people with making sure that you have a safe community. I think the community of believers is one of the most valuable things you can have, because what that tells you is that you can always find encouragement, you can always find hope, you can find shared experiences, and you can find remedy. Because we believe that Christ is the remedy, so you find people who can help you walk out that process. So that's so I think important on your starting spaces. Yeah. Then you refer out if needed to go, but that's where I would start.
Absolutely. Great nuggets. I want you to touch on this, and then I'm gonna let you lob it over to Reverend Riri, because we all work in ministry, but you all as leadership and pastoral heads of leadership of churches, what's the remedy when church doesn't feel like the safe space?
I think you've just identified you're in the wrong space. I think that's a honest space. I'm one of those individuals that if it ain't working, move on. And I think a lot of times in our culture, we have a tendency to lean on what's familiar, and we wind up being dead men walking.
And what can be safe for one person may not be safe for somebody else.
Absolutely.
Let's be clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why you have to be safe for you on one part of your journey, may not be safe for you. So when you were talking, Pastor Willie, one of the things I was thinking was part of how we miss it with our kids and even in other relationships is that we're afraid of our own feelings. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to help somebody else look into their own feelings. That's what's going on in the country now, right? It's hard to help people dig into their feelings when you haven't dug into yours. Mm-hmm. And so don't be afraid of the feelings. And Jeanette, that's what you were saying earlier. We've got to feel it. And as we're feeling it, we have to be reminded that we are safe right here. Now, if you're not safe, like Pastor Willie just said, then you got to move.
Right.
But you are safe right here. It's a feeling, right? It doesn't have to overtake you. It's not going to, it's a feeling. Feel it so you can identify it and see why it's there. You're going to have to ask some why questions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Why of you? Why of the space? Why is it not a safe place? Is it not a safe place because I don't want to deal and it's going to bring me out of something? Or is it not a safe place because it really isn't safe? They're not trying to help me grow, or I can't really be me and deal with the real me. Because that's what happens with our kids sometimes. We don't ask certain questions because we really don't want to know. Mm-hmm. Or because we haven't dealt with that and we don't know how to help you navigate, as opposed to being okay with holding space and hearing you and then helping you to get the help somewhere else. We got to be willing to explore those emotions.
Mm-hmm. And I think also too, Reverend Cherie, amazing points. Going back to the young ladies, she said, when it doesn't feel safe. I'm so happy you said that, those whys. You know, you got to be able to articulate the whys. You know, why doesn't it feel safe? And
Because
then I think
feeling safe and being safe can be two different things.
Yeah.
And then I think one question we have to ask ourselves: if it's not safe, why am I still there?
Yes.
You know, that's that self-eval thing. And a lot of times, and I think, you know, even for me myself, I found myself, you know, staying in spaces, relationships, and things like that, just because they were familiar. It wasn't because they were, you know, bad, but they were familiar. But I knew that I wasn't growing there. I knew that I wasn't being transformed. I wasn't being challenged. Or I've been in relationships to where I know I needed to move on, but I didn't want to move on because I like this trauma. That makes sense? Because
what was it you liked about it? Explain, go deeper. What was it that you were, because we only do what works for us. And you're saying something about that trauma was working for you. So what was working for you?
The first thing I think is the fact that it was familiar. It was familiar with me, and I know how to survive it.
It's the devil, you know, they say.
Yeah. It's I know what this is. I can survive this. I can survive this. And because I can survive this, I know that I won't die here. I may not like it, but I know I won't die here because I can survive it. And
yet you're constantly dying.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes.
You know,
you're constantly dying.
But yeah.
Yeah. Reverend Rhonda said, that's right, Reverend Cherie. Pastor Willie, she also is a ministry head, a first lady, and ordained in the church. She says, that's right, Reverend Cherie. Can't help others deal effectively with their feelings if we haven't dealt with our own feelings. Help us today. Yes.
Can I just tell you, though, that whole thing, it really, not feeling safe in church, you really have to dig into that. Is it me and I don't feel safe because they're pulling me to grow? Or do I not feel safe because it's not safe to grow?
Yeah.
And it does some, like, tears welled up for me because I know how I've dealt with so many people, worked with so many people who have felt that way in different places of my life, and even family who are not here with me or anywhere where I've served, but church has been a source of hurt for them. And there's no place where they felt they could even really talk about that. You have to push the conversations. Yes. Find the places where you can have the conversations, because what you don't want to be is a person where it is you. It is you. But you also don't want to be somewhere where it's not you and it isn't unsafe. So find someone to really talk to who's likely not a part of the situation. Church hurt, though, that really just, because it's supposed to be the safest place. It really is. It really is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll add this. I want to move as we get to the top of the hour into our exercises, but Carmen, for anybody that's feeling that way, the thing is, you're feeling a certain way. We go a little deeper. I know this circle looks a little different to those of you who were in our 21-day devotion. We go a little deeper in our workshops. And so you're getting to kind of see a little bit behind the scenes, but the feel it and face it part, and then figuring out, what is it I need? So Carmen, you know, even for you in that situation, you said, I see what you're saying. You said familiarity is the work of the devil. And what I mean is it causes complacency. It's hard when you're in ministry and you realize that something doesn't work for you. It does. It can be. It can be. And so that's why I suggest, when you feel it and you face it, what is it you need? You're saying it doesn't work for you, but what do you need? What do you need? You can't get what is going to work if you can't say what you need. So figure out what you need. And then a part of the path of healing will always have an element of forgiveness in it. Because either something's been done to you, you did something to somebody, or you allowed something to happen to you, or you did it to yourself. Whatever it is, there's going to be an element in there where forgiveness is going to be key. And then being able to trust that you can be restored out of this situation, that God will help, that God even forgives you. When you go to God and say, look, I messed this one up. and receiving that trust so that you can release it and so that you can move on. The heart head alignment. The reason that I wanted to introduce this and talk to you about this today, we were talking about epigenetics, and we were talking about the mice who, after 3 generations back of being shocked when they saw cherry blossoms, their kids were still feeling the effects and the triggers of that trauma. There might be some things that you need to kind of, you've sensed them, you kind of figure, you know your family's a certain kind of way about things, whatever that is, or maybe you develop new ones. It's important to understand that we got to align our thoughts, which is your clarity of mission, your vision in your mind, and then align that with your emotions. Remember, that's your feelings, your emotions in motion. And that's understanding the deeper parts of yourself, which you get to do when you do things like this. When you ask yourself questions, you get to layer yourself with compassion. You will have to show yourself care because you're going to be looking at some core truths and feelings and impressions. It may be even like I was sharing from, my experience in Iran, some lasting memories, some things that are in there that I didn't even realize, if in this right situation, would come to the surface. Now, before I tell you about the heart walls, what I want you to understand is what scientists have now called the second brain in our heart, because in our brain, we have neurites. Excuse me, y'all. Those are part of the things that helps us hold on to memories, right? And so what they started learning was when they started doing heart transplants on patients, how did the recipients of these hearts have memories that never belonged to them from experiences they never went through, right? How do you explain that? And what they are discovering and have discovered is that there is within our own heart sensory neurites, right? And so now it's almost like you got a brain here, but then you almost have a second brain in your heart. And it's so, think about it. When we say, man, that really hurt me, we always grab for our heart. It's a matter of the heart. It's a heart issue. Out of the heart flows the issues of life. The heart. So there's things your intelligent mind may understand, you forgive, you've moved past it, but your heart.
Yes.
Your heart has held on to it, right? And so that's why that power of alignment is so important. They measure now through magnetocardiogram, which is MCG, like many of you may have taken an EKG, where they measure your heart field, the electrical fields of your heart, and they have found that even your heart's magnetic field can extend up to 12 feet around you, in diameter around your body. Now think about this. Have you experienced it? You've walked in a room, somebody's in the room, all of a sudden the energy shifts and some don't feel right. It can be through the spirit. You can also be feeling you can be feeling what they're projecting from their body. Remember, we're all atoms, right? So we have to understand that a lot of these things, I'm just opening your mind, expanding your mind, giving you exposure to things you can go and study and learn about more on your own, or take it up with a coach or whatever. But you have to understand you're not just this 1D person, one-dimensional being walking around. Your mind, your body, your spirit. And things will impact you on different levels that we don't always understand. So trapped emotions normally will feel something, we'll process it. Right? We think about it, we process it, we'll make a decision about it, we act on it. But sometimes that emotional energy, and Reverend Riri was talking about this, it's so powerful that you just shove it down. That's how we deal with it. And it becomes trapped in your body. Now, remember when I was telling you I had that knot here. From high school, I had it. But when I got into news and had all of that stress and trauma emotionally of adapting to a new way of doing things, of the level of communication that people are doing, calling people out their names and then go have a pizza together, like all that was new to me. I watched that thing grow, that stress grow. And I realized, God showed me at that time, you can't. So that's why I have no tolerance. Remember on the wheel, you have boundaries that you set. I don't watch things that are, I might watch a few things. I don't watch a lot of drama TV. I don't let people around me, this drama. If you come to me for a conversation about something, I see it's about to be drama, I'm going to lovingly fade to black on you. You won't even know it, but I will have faded to black and exited the building. So You have to know what you can bear, bottom line. So then now I can get to talking to you about heart walls. Something happened to you when you were younger, you dealt with it, you put up a heart wall. You said, if this, then that. If this happens, then that means this. If that happens, then that means this. And Willie talked about it with his father. When I lost my father, said, if this, then that. And his if this, then that was, I can't go on a trip. I equated it to vacation. So I can't go on a trip and leave my kids because if this, then that. That's how we rationalize it. And so your heart builds this wall. And then something else happens. And then you build another wall. And then something else happens. And then you build another wall. And just like that onion, you get these layers. And here's the trouble. Whether it's trying to show love for yourself or love to other people, imagine if you have love in your heart. Let's give it the personification of a butterfly. And this love butterfly, right, is coming out of your heart toward another person or a circumstance or situation. But it's flying through all these filters of gack and crap and hardness and hurt and anger and pain. It's got to come through all those heart walls. It's flying. So by the time it gets to where it's going, it doesn't even look like, it's not even the same thing that left your heart. You think it is because your intention says, I love you. I'm trying to show you I love you. Right? But what's coming out and through all those layers is this beaten, battered something that's left. And so we have to understand that's why clearing away these walls, clearing away these, understanding our filters, understanding all the things that we've siloed ourselves within are so important. And there's so many different ways that we go through releasing this. This is part of the work that we do through the release experience. And I've already been talking to Reverend Riri. I said, I know we do this for women, but because of the amount of men that have jumped on this bandwagon, and especially for what we're going through now in our country, we're going to have a lot of men who are going to need to deal with some feelings. They're not even buried alive. They're not even buried. They're just on the surface. Yeah. And so one way, and this is out of the book that the title comes from, Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. Now, she calls it a script. For those of you of different faith things, or you don't do prayer, this is a script. For those of you that read it, you're going to say that's a prayer. Whatever works for you, that's what we're going to do. It's taking the negative and it's shifting it to the positive. You can positively charge anything with love, with grace, with forgiveness. That's why love is the biggest of all of the emotions that you can have. God is love. That's why that's the biggest thing, because it trumps. It's like the trump card for everything. It'll boom, boom, boom. It eliminates everything. So the script, God, please locate the origin of my feeling, my thought, my negative feeling of, let's take feeling less than enough. Okay, because we did that topic. Help me know the origin. Where did that start? That feeling of not being enough. Take each and every level, every layer, every area and aspect of my being to this origin, so I can analyze and resolve it perfectly with God's truth. Come through, look, here's all the layers and here's all the backstory. Come through all the generations of time and eternity, healing every incident and all of its appendages based on that origin. Do it according to God's will until I am at present filled with light and truth, God's peace, love, and forgiveness of myself for my incorrect perception.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
And then forgiveness of every person, place, circumstance, and event that contributed to that feeling or thought. Now that's forgiveness going this way, and then it's forgiveness going that way. Forgiveness, caveat, side note, doesn't mean you agree with what was done. Doesn't mean you sign up for that package. It means that you divorce yourself from that connection you have to that person, those people, or that experience, because you say, I'm moving on. I forgive it. I'm out. Let God deal with that. with total forgiveness and unconditional love, which can be a process, people, I allow every physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual problem and inappropriate behavior based on that negative origin recorded in my DNA to be transformed. Now, you said, Jeanette, that's a lot. Take the essence of it. You're saying, God, take me back to the origin of where this thing came from. Heal it. Help me forgive myself. Help me forgive others. Now let's replace it. And you're going to choose to be confident. You're going to choose to feel loved, valued. I am valued, loved, worthy, significant. I am worthy of being healthy, healed, whole, whatever you want to put in there. And then it is done. It is healed. It is accomplished now. That is your affirmation. That is your constant reminding to yourself. Remember, you're setting a thermostat. You may not even feel it right now, but you're saying it by faith, because right now it's a little warm. It's 80 degrees. I can see in my house right now. If I go over there and set it to 72, I'm eventually going to get to where I'm trying to go in here. When you say these affirmations, when you pray these prayers, when you read the script and you slap that on there, you are saying by faith, this is the direction I'm trying to go. By faith, I set the thermostat in my spirit, my mind, my body. This is the direction. It is done. Thank God for coming to my aid, because as Reverend Riri and Pastor Willie said, he'll never leave you or forsake you.
That's it.
Right?
I think this also, for me, as I'm looking at it, is it's what fortifies us individually. So when I think about what's happening in our country now, this is not just about George Floyd.
No.
This is about hundreds of years of feelings buried alive because we weren't allowed to express. And so it's these things right here that help fortify you to be able to address social ills and things where it doesn't overtake you in the process of fighting for justice. This is not in any way to eliminate what needs to happen outside of your house or even in your house sometimes, but this is the getting myself together so that I can be angry and sin not.
Yes.
So I can go out and do and express without killing.
Yeah.
Without having to do to someone else what was done to me, but still holding people fully accountable for what they've done. And so that to me is one of the reasons we have to do the self-work. We have to get ourselves to believe that we're worthy, so that we are not believing what the country has said about us. Clearly, they thought we were worthy because you brought us over here to build your country. Right. You know what I mean? So there are things that we have to take and say, oh, no, they know. They will try and pull the wool over your eyes so that you don't believe you are all of who God says you are. But that to me is, and I really appreciate that's the pulling back and saying, whoa, let me make sure I'm good.
Right.
Even in the scripture that we started with, I can still have joy. I still have to find my joy at home. You know, every now and then I just break out dancing.
Hey, yeah, me too.
You know, because
I know yours are Friday nights. Yeah,
I'm not going to carry all of that into my house. Oh, no. Life is we already know life is too hard. So all of these things, to me, that was a really helpful tool to make sure that we're taking care of us and those who live in your home.
Yes. And you all, hopefully, if you took a screenshot of it, or you can, scroll back and get it, or if you look up, you can look it up online. But the number one thing is, like Reverend Riri was saying, recognize your own uncomfortable feelings, and you got to face and focus your attention there. Do that script prayer as many times as you need it. When a negative emotion comes up, and I say this all the time, you have to fight it verbally. That'll come up in the tips later. You don't have a negative thought and you go with the positive thought, and you have this battle in your head. You have to speak over it because your words have power. But say that thing as many times as you need. Do a mental sweep before you go to bed. So important, because the whole day has happened. You're taking all this in, and then you want to go to bed, like just lay down, like it's just going to go to sleep with you. No. You have to sweep that stuff out. You have to address that stuff before you lay your, so that you can lay down in peace and then sleep in peace. Process as many unresolved feelings as you can. Now, in our in our retreats, we introduce so many different ways you can do that, through prayer, through meditation. Sometimes it's delivery. Sometimes it's through tapping. It's through working with your nerves, your nervous system. There's so many different techniques, meditation. There's so many different techniques we'll introduce to help people do that. But you have to start finding a way and a system that works for you to process it. Keep in mind, no guilt, no shame, no regret. Just start working on changing the negative to the positive. There's no sense in going, well, I should have done this. I shouldn't be here. I should have let that go. Just, it doesn't matter. You're here now. Just deal with it now. Memorize that script or a form of it, something that you can work with, so that when you need that tool, you have it. Put it in your phone. All you know, the parts. It's like, God, help me understand, where did this start? Help me understand that. Forgive it. Forgive me. Forgive them. Now let's change it. Basically, you could wrap it down that quickly. And it's ideal to say it out loud. This is what I was talking about. Our spoken word has power. The power of life and death right there in your mouth. And so it's not more than just think it. It's great. The great place to start. But when you start confessing it, and you know, I've done it. I know we all have. When you start confessing something with your mouth, there's an energy that builds. There's a boldness that comes up. There's a ferociousness that gets added to that. It's like God goes, oh, you for real now? Like, and, you know, you get power packed, right? You jump in. Miss Helen says, yes, yes. Final thoughts from you two?
Rev, okay, got it. I think I will echo the space where you were speaking about the power of the spoken word. A lot of times we give that, you knew I was going there. I know.
I was going there too. That's funny. I didn't know you were going there.
Hit it.
You know, I am of the belief that we've spent a lot of time worrying about the words of other people, and we didn't counter those words with the words that we speak. There are several studies that tell us that the words affect the molecules even in our body.
Yes.
So if we say that, you know, I am somebody, I am whole, I am delivered, I have the right to be free, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, I'm the head and not the tail. When we take that, not only does it begin to shift our atmospheres, the second thing it does, it begins to make us accountable to the words that we speak. Yeah. And I think a lot of times we allow the negative complaining words to be that thing that manifests the most.
Right.
I did a message to some young people. I always glad the kids about the power of the spoken words. And I was telling them about the importance of silence. You know, silence is a weapon when you don't know what to speak. Yeah. If you don't know the right things to say, don't say anything at all, because the worst thing that could happen is the things that you say foolishly to come out of your mouth and begin to manifest in front of you. Yeah, I believe that a lot of things that we're seeing a lot of the manifestation of the spoken word. Yeah. So when you don't take that responsibility to start shaping your atmosphere with your words, then you are the person who leads that. You're the person who is in control of that. That's not my pastor. That's not my mentor. That's not my coach. That's not any of that. That's saying, you know what? I take responsibility for the words that come out of my mouth that I believe about me. So if someone says that, you know, you are a mess, you ain't going to be anything, you can counter to say, well, I am somebody and I'm going to be the head and not the tail. I'm going to be above and not beneath. And I think one of the times with us is that we have to build up our vocabulary in that affirmation area.
Absolutely.
You know, write it down. I have affirmations on my mirror.
Me too.
I posted a picture last night. I said, when the world gets loud, I surround myself with affirmations.
Yes.
You know, when the media says one thing, I have to cut that off, and I have to start surrounding myself with what I know my truth is. And that's me saying, I'm taking ownership of this life. They don't control that. That's my responsibility. And I think when we do that, then we can get to that place to where we're healed. And that's just one of the tools that we can use. Jeanette also, and Rev, Cherie, thank y'all so much for allowing me to come on. So
You're welcome. We're not saying thank you yet. We're showing people
No,
I'm
I
showing people that if they need help specifically in that area of your young people, this and your young men, this brother right here has it on lock. He is a pastor, a mentor, a life coach, and an author. He's getting ready to launch his podcast. Congratulations, brother. I'm happy for you about that. But as you see, like he's also has his philanthropic pursuits focused on the future as a mentorship program that they founded in 2011. When I lived in the same city, I had the opportunity to work with them on a couple of events, and you can see even the student testimonials down here. I mean, I can't say enough good things about this mentor program. Also for the girls, God Girls Rock. Also, and I recognize that poster and another.
You did that. Thank you.
I know. I mean, that's so years ago. I was like, oh, yeah. I recognize that. But and then his challenge 21. So WillieDiggs.com, you can go and find out and learn more about him. Willie, we are thankful to you for not only what you shared today, but for who you are, because you've come, you have your own church, you pastor, and you've come and you've been a light to our people. When many of the people online recognize you from that, you just have a heart to get people free. And so for that, we thank you for always being willing, for always being available. And if you want to reach out, you see his, he's at Willie Diggs. You see his website there. Make sure you reach out and make that connection. So thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Reverend Riri, final thoughts?
I really believe we can come out of this different.
Yeah.
We can come out of this differently. And we need to come out of this differently because we already know we're not walking into the same world. And a lot of what was going on was not working anyway. And so deal with your emotions and the feelings that you've buried alive. I am a witness that if you do that, just starting to do it will help you so much and start to free you. You'll feel differently. I have made a decision for myself in this pandemic of COVID-19 and racism. Because racism's not new.
Yeah.
The layers are just being pulled off, right? Yeah. And so I've made a decision for me that I can breathe and that I will breathe. I know the importance of I can't breathe, but the truth of the matter is I can. And it is my breath that breathes for those who cannot. Yeah. And so it's important that if you have breath, the words that you speak are so very important. Thank God for the life and breath that you do have, and go ahead and work on you so that you can help your community, those within your home and outside your walls. And then breathe. I'm gonna leave it there. You all keep breathing.
Yeah.
Keep breathing because we need you.
Oh, yeah.
And let me tell you, I love that sentiment. I'm gonna come back to that in a second. I know that those of you who follow us, many of you know who she is, but just allow me to brag on my sister a little bit. She is the First Lady and pastoral presence with her husband, Reverend Dr. Patrick DeWitt Claiborne. He loves it when I call his whole name. At Bethel AME Church here in Baltimore, Maryland. We do phenomenal work. And if it weren't true, I'd just be quiet. I wouldn't say nothing. And then I'd go work somewhere else. So it is true. And what I love about them is they are cutting edge and progressive in that.
Yes, they are.
When they brought me here, knowing this area that needed to be done in the area of media and marketing and PR and those types of things and church growth. But then they also said, we know Baltimore needs a healing. People here need a healing. We want you to bring your coaching. And so they allowed me to come and help develop life classes that do a lot of what we're doing here for church members. And we talk about stuff in church that church people don't normally always talk about, but we should. And so for that, I will always be grateful And I know that our people are better because of it. Not only that, she is a spiritual counselor, she's a preacher, but she is also a columnist. And if you ever want to read some of her good things, go look for the Christian Recorder, which is the official newspaper publication of the AME denomination, African Methodist Episcopal denomination. And you see one of her articles there. Joy comes in the morning, with the play on words of morning. So, thank you, because in this, she talks about what we learn out of our grief. Having just recently had her father pass away, she shared that. She shares the journey and what we learn out of the journey. So you don't take for granted people that will lay their pain out before you so you can come out better.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a price for that. I don't know that everybody always understands that. There's a price. When we share these stories, we've gotten to a place where we're healed, where we can share it with you. And there was a price to pay for that. So we are so thankful for both of you. So everybody is loving y'all up. Pamela says, this has been amazing. Thank you all for your gifts. Dwight says it was awesome. I'm so glad that it resonates with you. Savalas, who will be on next week, Wednesday, with me, says the world and the heavens are waiting in response to what we say. God created the world by his words, and we are created in his likeness. Yep. So thank you, Pastor Willie. He says you're awesome, Pastor Sharif. Fantastic as always. Another powerful morning. Yes, brother. And we'll do it again with you next week. Jamel says we can come out of this differently. We have to set that thermostat in our mind. We will come out of this differently. Leola says, thank you for the release journey today. God bless you all. Reverend Rhonda, brag on her. That's it. Keep breathing, y'all. Keep breathing. Yeah. Yes, his whole name, Patrick D. Witt Claiborne. Oh yes, Pastor Willie, 11/9/18. He spoke a word to me. Clap, clap. This is a year of change. Hey, listen, he brought that clap, clap up here too.
Yes, he did. He will speak a word to you.
Yes, well, you know your tribe. He was like, this is the year that everything changes. Yes, we did. We clapped on that. We sure did clap on it. Thank you, Pastor Diggs and Reverend Cherie. Y'all just be up in my business, says Carmen.
We love you, Carmen.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. I want to leave this today with the sentiment that Reverend Cherie shared. Keep breathing. Yes. It feels like it feels like the knee of the world can be on your neck sometime, but we will keep breathing.
Yeah.
We will keep breathing. We will address the knee, but we're going to keep breathing.
You better say it. Come on.
We will. Don't be fooled. We're going to keep breathing. And how we do that, y'all, is the important part of this week. After we log off, bye-bye, we love you, Matt. How we do that? How will we breathe? Will you have conscious conversations? Will you have courageous conversations?
Yes.
Will you keep scrolling when the foolishness you see is not going to be foolishness you can have impact or influence on? Can you bring a sense of peace to disruptive spaces?
Yep.
These are the ways we keep. You better say it. I can breathe.
Yes.
I will breathe.
Yes.
Yep.
I will breathe. Now we're going to deal with the people that are hurt and but how we do that, y'all, you do have power. Yes, you can vote. Yes, there's so many other things. But in this space of social media specifically, I want to talk about this. Let's change the atmosphere here. How you do that, be divinely guided. Some fights you don't even need to get into. They'll peter out if you don't even throw any more air on them. Don't fan the fire. They'll just go out. Some things you can post that will bring life. Are you posting things that bring life? Now, it doesn't mean they have to be flowery and sunshiny. No. But do they bring life and illuminate? Do they help people understand? Don't repost the stuff that just puts another knee on my neck. If we're already struggling in this area, Okay. Because there's a time for that. And then there's a time for us to say, okay, now how do I help my brother breathe? How do I help my sister breathe? How do I help them breathe?
Mhm.
Don't stay in the news cycle 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Don't do that. That's not going to help you breathe. Stay informed, but don't be inundated. Helen says, breathe, breathe, and then breathe. Wendy says, this is so amazing. Grateful for all the work and time it took to put this together. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Jeanette, First Lady, Pastor Willie, a constant ventilation source. Yes, yes. That's what we're here for. Now, listen, speaking about breathing, I need y'all to show up tomorrow. You hear me? I need y'all to show up tomorrow. We're going to be at 1 o'clock. But this conversation, you do not want to miss. Implicit biases. All right. Celebrity licensed therapist. I say celebrity because she did a lot of work with, well, she tried to do some work with the housewives, but she is a licensed therapist, just a good person. She's very vocal about her own struggles and her own wins. A good faith girl. Vasavi Kumar is going to be on with me tomorrow. And we are going to have our own panel of folks who take a implicit bias test. Because you can't help change somebody else's mind about how they see things if you don't know how you see things. You got to start from the inside out. So we're going to do this tomorrow at 1 p.m. This is the conversation we all need to have. And I'm telling you, people are coming from different walks of life, different upbringing, different circumstances, situations. I still have room for a few more people to participate. If you would like to participate, you would have to commit to an hour. The test is an hour. There's like different sections that each take 10 minutes. You don't have to do it all at one time, but it's about 50 minutes to an hour to do that. And then come honestly discuss your findings. Honestly discuss your findings. That's tomorrow at 1 p.m. So I hope that you will join me then. Thank you so much, Reverend Riri. Love you.
Thank you. Love you all too.
Thank you so much, Brother Willie. Love you, brother.
Love you too.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Be what?
I said be safe.
I'm going to be safe. You too. Family, this has been another fantastic tool. If you did not share this, please share it, because healing, help, and hope should be everyone's. There should not be anyone who's running around trying to find the tool to help them get to where they need to go. All right. So share these as you see fit. You can share them in a messenger. You can share it on the page, whatever you need to do. But share. You can even copy the link and email it, because my page is public. So even people who aren't on Facebook can get this. These are the tools we need to share to bring about a higher level of healing, of help, and of hope. I love you so much. I hope that you'll stay with us this week, tomorrow's conversation, and then I'll be back on Friday for live coaching, and we'll go through the exercises that we talked about Monday on Mindset Monday. So a lot to do, but this is how we continue to breathe. Keep breathing, y'all. Love you. See you tomorrow.